Okay, let's unpack this fantastic scenario. We're trading the smoky, neon-lit grid of the city for a meticulously designed, snowbound English country house deep in the high Berkshires.
A total fantasy world.
Totally. But the moment our protagonist, the New York bookseller and genius burglar Bernie Rhodenbarr, steps over the threshold, this cozy fantasy turns lethal.
It happens so fast.
Well, it's supposed to be a quiet weekend getaway, it quickly spirals into a high-stakes, locked-room mystery with a rapidly escalating body count.
It truly is the perfect literary trap. Lawrence Block takes the classic elements we know and love, a remote location, a limited pool of suspects, a valuable artifact.
All the cozy tropes.
All of them. And then he throws in a main character who operates entirely outside the boundaries of polite society. Bernie, our burglar, is the disruptive element. He forces this volatile and immediate clash of literary styles within the confines of one very cold, very isolated mansion.
Exactly. And that's our mission today, a forensic deep dive into the structure and the mechanics of this novel. We're going to explore how the author successfully merges the formal, the puzzle box tradition of the cozy English mystery.
Think drawing room deduction a la Agatha Christie.
Right, and he merges that with the cynical, action-oriented ethos of American hard-boiled crime fiction. And, fascinatingly, the philosophical object embodying this tension is the very treasure Bernie is there to steal.
We'll be analyzing the players, dissecting the highly detailed plot devices. Everything from cut phone lines to sugared gas tanks that create this claustrophobic environment.
It's so meticulous.
It is. We'll track the surprising shift in genre, showing how the investigation transitions from, say, a Poirot-style inquiry to a desperate Philip Marlowe-esque confrontation. So you, the listener, you're stepping into the role of the armchair detective, guided, perhaps unnervingly, by a man whose professional specialty is breaking the law.
Let's start with the man himself, then. Bernie Rhodenbarr.
Our protagonist.
He's the owner of Barnegat Books, a legitimate establishment, but he finances his life through his true genius. Being a master burglar, specifically one of the finest lockpickers in New York, we really have to understand his identity to understand his actions here.
His dual nature is absolutely essential. He's meticulous, intelligent, and has this encyclopedic knowledge of literature, the perfect intellectual foundation for a detective, really.
Sure.
But he is driven by a nonconformist, opportunistic criminal impulse. His motivation for this trip is purely hedonistic. He booked an exclusive, expensive weekend at Cuttleford House using funds gained from a recent lucrative off-the-books enterprise.
And he refers to these ventures, these breaking and entering jobs, as his Perrier nights.
Right.
That specific detail, I think, tells you everything you need to know about his mindset.
It really does. It's not just about the money, it's about the methodology and the self-control. A Perrier night is his drug of choice when performing illegal entries.
So not alcohol, not anything that would cloud his judgment.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. He's consuming pure, unadulterated, high-end mineral water, maintaining absolute clarity, physical and mental precision, while executing a delicate, high-risk operation. He is taking the proceeds of this highly controlled, genius burglary and spending it on an extravagant, romantic vacation.
Which was not originally supposed to be a solo trip or a trip with his best friend.
No.
He originally planned to share this vacation with his latest romantic interest, a woman named Lettice Runcible. But, as often happens in Bernie's life, that arrangement just collapsed. Lettice abruptly informed him she was tying the knot.
With someone else.
With someone else, yep.
So instead of a romantic weekend, he's accompanied by his companion, the wonderfully pragmatic and immensely insightful Carolyn Kaiser.
I love Carolyn.
She's fantastic. She's a canine stylist by trade, which is itself a great detail, positioning her in a world of high-end, somewhat absurd domesticity, and she serves as Bernie's platonic partner in life and, increasingly, in crime-adjacent activities.
What's so fascinating about Carolyn is how she balances Bernie's intellectual detachment. She's his anchor, the voice of common sense, especially in matters of pure logistics. And this dynamic is perfectly summarized in the hilarious detail involving their Manx cat, Raffles.
Ah, Raffles.
Yes, Raffles.
Raffles is a character unto himself, noted for being trained to use the toilet just like a person, which is a whole other story.
Right. But Bernie, true to form, he tries to manage the cat by diplomacy. He's trying to con them into it, to get him into the carrier for the trip. He fails utterly.
Of course he does.
But Carolyn has no time for intellectualizing feline motivations. She simply claps her hands fiercely, calls the cat's name, and then physically bends over, picks him up, and efficiently deposits him in the carrier.
And her explanation of Bernie is just perfectly blunt.
You can't con them into it. You have to get physical.
That physical practicality defines their dynamic throughout the whole deep dive. She is ready to act, he is ready to observe and analyze. And Raffles, the toilet-trained working cat, he's technically employed at Carolyn's salon to handle the mice problem, is now dragged along to this ridiculous destination.
Which is Cuttleford House.
Sage itself.
Cuttleford House is a masterpiece of architectural deceit. It is not some genuinely old, inherited English estate suffering from death duties.
Not at all.
It's a meticulously maintained exclusive hotel in the Berkshires, built by an American robber baron named Ferdinand Cathcart exactly 100 years ago. It's a completely manufactured fantasy.
And Cathcart, who made his fortune through the typically brutal means of the Gilded Age, grinding the faces of the poor, as the sources describe it, only lived there for 5 years before dying of an apoplectic fit.
So no mystery there originally.
Right. Importantly, no murder mystery is attached to its origins. It was a place of extreme, new American wealth, masquerading as inherited European history.
And now it's run by Nigel and Sissy Eglantine, whose obsession with authenticity verges on the pathological. They're trying to maintain this perfect, sealed environment, even down to the level of staff behavior.
It's not just luxury, it's a performance. We're talking coal fires flickering on every hearth, serving girls who are expected to drop curtsies upon delivering tea, and a complete ban on modern amenities.
No TV.
No television, not even visible automobiles on the property. Bernie immediately pegs the atmosphere as designed to be some sort of cross between upstairs, downstairs, and the body in the library.
And that second half of the comparison, the body in the library, that's the critical cue, isn't it?
It's a huge tell.
We are walking into a space that is literally designed to host an Agatha Christie plot. Even the guest rooms are given these false genealogies, with names like Aunt Augusta's room and Uncle Roger's room, giving this American estate completely manufactured English heritage. It's a self-contained, airtight box ready for a puzzle.
This extreme detail in the setting is the author's way of setting the rules. This is the cozy side of the equation. It's fragile, it's based on decorum and performance, and it is utterly isolated.
Which brings us to the actual reason Bernie is there.
The MacGuffin.
He isn't interested in Cathcart's dusty silverware or the Eglantine's collection of period furniture. He's after a literary monument, perhaps the ultimate symbol of the alternative to this cozy world. A mass edition of Raymond Chandler's first novel, The Big Sleep, published in 1939.
But not just any copy, as you said. This specific volume is an ultimate association copy in American literature. It is inscribed personally by Chandler to Dashiell Hammett.
Wow.
For those who aren't steeped in literary crime history, that is like finding the first edition of Moby Dick inscribed by Melville de Hawthorne. It's intrinsically priceless, and Bernie, the bookseller and thief, understands that value perfectly.
The value here isn't just scarcity, it's symbolic weight. This is a foundational document of a genre. And Bernie deduces the book's presence through a careful trail of literary breadcrumbs, linking the house's past owners to the literary scene of the 1940s.
The link is Forrest Fontenoy, an old owner and a supporter of leftist causes who was acquainted with Lillian Hellman, Hammett's longtime partner. The theory that Bernie pieces together is brilliant in its simplicity.
It is, yeah.
Hammett, who is famously a heavy drinker, was likely drunk or hungover after a gathering at Cuttleford House and simply left the inscribed first edition behind. A maid, not recognizing the historical significance, mistakenly shelved it in the Great Library.
This detail provides the ultimate irony that anchors the deep dive. The book that founded the gritty, cynical, hard-boiled American tradition.
A tradition defined by a rejection of stuffy country house mysteries.
Is physically trapped in the hyper-polite, faux English, cozy environment of Cuttleford House.
And this is where the literary analysis really kicks in. Raymond Chandler famously defined the shift away from the cozy genre, stating that Hammett took murder out of the Venetian vest and dropped it into the alley.
And that's literally what's happened to the book.
Literally. Bernie's very goal, the goal that defines his character in this novel, is to rescue this monument to American grit from a metaphorical Venetian vase of a hotel.
That quote perfectly sums up the tension. Chandler and Hammett were the undisputed founders of hard-boiled crime fiction writing for people with a sharp, aggressive attitude to life. They moved away from the improbable poisons and aristocratic feuds to the mean streets, where motivations were base greed, lust, survival.
And the Big Sleep is the physical manifestation of that movement, locked away behind a series of velvet ropes and curtsying maids.
And its location in the library, on an upper shelf requiring the use of the rolling library steps, is almost a symbolic physical challenge. Bernie plans to retrieve it at the last minute, just before leaving the next morning. He calls the current moment before the crime really starts the penultimate minute. He knows time is running out to execute his original, purely criminal mission.
But time and the weather are conspiring against him. The external forces start to shatter the fragile perfection of the Eglantine's fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Bernie and Carolyn arrive just as the snow becomes severe, snowing to beat the band. This guarantees that Cuttleford House will soon achieve the necessary prerequisite for any good, cozy mystery. Complete physical isolation. The stage is being perfectly set.
The isolation mechanism is precise and multi-layered. To access the property, you cross a bridge and leave your car in a parking lot. They meet Oris, the houseworker who is responsible for clearing the snow. He's described as a little slow, but reliable.
And the local driver who drops them off immediately feeds the guests rumors about Oris's past, planting that essential seed of doubt about who might be capable of violence. It's a classic setup.
It is. And we meet the full cast of suspects as they settle in, each of them a perfectly calibrated archetype. You have Colonel Edward Blount Buller, a florid, highly eccentric Englishman.
He hates modern England so much he comes to the Berkshires for his authentic experience.
Which is just, the irony is incredible.
The absurdity of seeking authentic Englishness in America to avoid British taxes is a wonderful piece of Bloch's satire. He stays 6 months here and 6 months in Florida purely for tax reasons.
Then there's Rufus Quilp, the stout gentleman who is always reading and napping, specifically reading Dickens, which gives him that air of antiquated literary preoccupation.
And Gordon Wolpert, the observant, tweedy gentleman who seems to know just a little too much about everyone. He's the classic potential witness or amateur detective.
And we cannot forget Millicent Savage,
The child.
the precocious child who immediately pegs Bernie as a criminal. She doesn't use coded language or drop subtle hints. She flat out says, "I know you're a burglar, Bernie, and I bet nobody else here knows that."
She is the embodiment of dangerous, unadulterated truth in a house built on elaborate lies.
Millicent, bless her cotton socks, threatens to be the emotional weak point in Bernie's entire weekend. But the real emotional disruption arrives late, just before the isolation is complete.
The late arrivals.
Dakin Littlefield and his new bride, Lettice Runcible Littlefield, the woman Bernie was supposed to be sharing Aunt Augusta's room with.
Talk about an awkward situation. The betrayal, or at least the abruptness of her departure from Bernie's life, creates an immediate, heightened emotional stake.
And Bernie has an instant, visceral, and powerful dislike for Dakin Littlefield. He notices the physical details, the hawk nose, the aggressive chin, and a cruel mouth. Bernie instantly, instinctively, labels him an asshole.
And the fact that Dakin is married to Lettice and she's brought him here instead of going to Aruba as originally planned confirms to Bernie that this weekend is officially cursed.
To make matters worse, Bernie realizes the room he booked, Aunt Augusta's, has a double bed because he had originally requested it for himself and Lettice.
Oh, that's just rubbing salt in the wound.
It is. Now he and Carolyn, maintaining their strictly platonic friendship, decide to share the sagging double bed anyway, justifying it due to exhaustion.
That moment seems incredibly loaded, given he was supposed to be there with Lettice. Does the text imply there's something more beneath that platonic friendship?
I think so. The proximity, the exhaustion, the shared experience of this absurd, cold house, it adds a layer of suppressed, quiet emotion to their dynamic, which contrasts so sharply with the loud, abrasive dynamic of the newly arrived Littlefields.
It's a moment of intimacy grounded entirely in friendship and mutual respect.
Which is actually very hard-boiled in its own way, that loyalty between partners.
That's a great point. However, this emotional entanglement throws off Bernie's timing. He decides he must move quickly. The penultimate minute is now.
Right. He tries to get the big sleep from the library before leaving the next morning, but he is called away by Lettice. This results in a late-night dalliance in the East Parlor. Not a romantic one, but a complex, awkward reunion under the gaze of a stuffed springbuck.
A stuffed springbuck, perfect.
He manages to slip away later and heads back to the library, realizing he's still not looking like a gentleman, but like a furtive criminal. He notices two people whispering in the library, but retreats so as not to appear suspicious.
And that split-second decision prioritizing not looking like a bumbling burglar cost him the chance to prevent the first murder, because in the morning...
Screaming starts.
Yep.
Molly Cobbett, the downstairs maid, finds the body of Jonathan Rathburn. Rathburn was the intense gentleman who had been scribbling furiously at the writing desk the night before, and now he lies dead at the base of the great library steps.
The initial cozy-style theory is offered immediately by Miss Hardesty, who's wheeling her companion, Miss Dinmont. Rathburn tripped over an untied shoelace and fell.
Plausible deniability.
Exactly. The book, The Big Sleep, remains innocently on the high shelf. This is the moment the genre rules of the cozy mystery are formally laid down. A plausible accident, a suggestion of domestic negligence, and the scene preserved.
But Bernie, the man whose professional life revolves around meticulous detail and spotting flaws in security, he immediately recognizes the implausibility. The crime scene is wrong for an accident, and he begins to tear the cozy scenario apart using detailed deduction.
This is a crucial pivot point. Bernie's deduction is not based on clues left by the killer, but on simple, undeniable physics and light. He establishes that Molly Cobbett drew the drapes open that morning. Therefore, the room was pitch dark when Rathburn fell.
So what was he doing on the steps?
Exactly. Rathburn could not have been searching for a book on the high shelves requiring the steps in the pitch dark. It makes no sense.
Furthermore, the fact that the drapes were drawn suggests the body was intended to be found later, or by accident, or that the killer wanted maximum cover. And the shoelace theory. The untied shoelace suggests a fatal trip, but if Rathburn were looking for the book, he would have been focused on the task, not his feet.
It's too convenient. Bernie concludes the death was staged as a fall to hide the real cause.
And the physical evidence supports this improvisation. Bernie theorizes Rathburn was first struck by the heavy bronze camel statuette, a random piece of drawing room decor causing the scalp wound.
Right, a weapon of opportunity.
Then he was smothered with a pillow, explaining potential pinpoint hemorrhaging that might otherwise be invisible. These are improvised, close-quarters weapons, which suggests the killer was someone in the house who panicked rather than a professional hitman.
As this realization sinks in that they are trapped with a murderer, the isolation is confirmed. Nigel Eglantine, after trying the phone, reports the line is dead. Sure, it must be the snow. But Bernie, thinking like a professional criminal, knows better.
Of course he does.
He confirms that the phone wires were deliberately cut all the way around the back of the house, indicating premeditation and a desire to ensure no immediate contact with the outside world. The killer is one of them, and nobody can call the cavalry. The snow globe is sealed shut, but inside, the glass is starting to crack.
Now that the idyllic snow globe has been irrevocably shattered, the violence just escalates. It becomes crueler and more chaotic. We get 2 deaths in quick succession, further cementing the house as a prison and utterly destroying the civilized facade.
The second victim is Orris, the slow but reliable worker. Despite the deep snow, Orris insists he can wade through the 3-foot drifts to the jeep across the gorge to seek help.
A brave but fatal decision.
Absolutely. He is found dead below the severed bridge.
Bernie inspects the scene and confirms double sabotage, highlighting the killer's thoroughness. The bridge ropes were professionally cut, most likely to keep people in the house, not specifically to kill Orris, who was simply unfortunate enough to test the escape route.
But there's a fascinating wrinkle in the second mechanism of isolation, the snowblower. Orris was relying on that machine to clear any path. Bernie discovers the engine had been sabotaged with sugar in the gas tank.
Right. And this detail is important because, as we learn later, this specific act of vandalism was not part of the main murder plot at all.
No, it's a red herring, but a meaningful one.
It was mischievous, petty revenge carried out by Erlene Cobbett, Orris's cousin and lover. She was mad at him for paying attention to her cousin Molly and wanted to teach him a lesson.
It brilliantly shows the intertwining of petty domestic drama, which is the lifeblood of a cozy mystery, with the overarching, high-stakes, violent crime. The primary killer exploited the isolation, but the isolation itself was reinforced by a separate, unrelated act of small malice.
The stage is doubly set, one by design, one by petty jealousy.
Exactly. Before they can fully process Orris's demise, the third victim is discovered, the cook. Sissy Eglantine finds her dead in the kitchen. She had briefly left the kitchen after breakfast following the commotion over Rathburn. She was preparing lamb stew, a process that takes time, establishing she was present and working while the other chaos unfolded.
And the circumstances surrounding the cook's death suggest poison.
Right. Carolyn, ever the practical one, she searches for the scent of bitter almonds, a telltale sign of cyanide. She finds none, suggesting the poison was non-agonizing or undetectable by simple smell. The bodies are they're piling up.
3 dead, Isolation complete, and the guests begin to adjust to the carnage in a way that is profoundly unsettling.
And what an adjustment. This is where the satire of the cozy genre becomes absolutely savage. The civilized veneer shatters completely. Rather than dealing with the horror, they move the bodies outside onto lawn chairs, covering them with sheets.
Just out of the way.
Adopting this appalling, out of sight, out of mind attitude toward the rapidly expanding snow-covered graveyard. It's a grotesque attempt to maintain the fiction of order and civilized behavior.
This is the critical juncture where Bernie recognizes that the cozy methods, the polite questioning, the drawing room deductions of Poirot or Marple are useless.
They're completely useless.
The sheer overwhelming reality of the escalating violence is incompatible with the rules of the genre the house is supposed to emulate.
The other guests quickly abandon Bernie's logical safety and numbers plan. Dacre Littlefield openly dismisses the entire investigation as crap. This forces Bernie into a moment of severe internal conflict, a decision about which literary world he inhabits.
He's had to make a choice.
He concludes that he must stop playing the gentleman detective. The house, despite its chintz and four-poster beds, is not St. Mary Mead. It's a facade over a reality that is fundamentally cold, greedy, and violent. It's a place of mean streets, and the only way to solve this is to adopt the cynical, confrontational, action-oriented approach of a Philip Marlowe.
He needs to force the killer's hand.
And move outside the rules of the cozy game.
It's a complete genre flip, reflected in his strategic decision. He must disappear. He decides to fake his own death to gain total freedom of action and movement without interference from the increasingly useless guests.
The execution of this plan requires his professional skills. He picks the lock to Rathburn's room, young George's room, to gather clothes and a pillow, demonstrating that even under extreme duress, his technical expertise remains flawless.
He then crafts a makeshift dummy. The weapon choice is fantastic.
Yeah.
He stabs the dummy with the Malayan kris, a wavy-bladed dagger which he had taken from a sitting room wall display.
A theatrical prop for a theatrical end.
Exactly. He lowers the dummy, dressed in Rathburn's clothes and stuffed with the pillow, over the cliff edge with fishing line, cuts the line, and goes into hiding, wanting everyone to think the killer has struck a fourth time and that he is the victim.
The staging is effective, but the reality proves more brutal than Bernie's theatrical trap. While the guests are searching for Bernie, they discover a genuine fourth body outside on a lawn chair. Gordon Wolpert.
The observant, tweedy gentleman.
He had been brutally strangled with a necktie.
So Bernie's disappearance, intended to create chaos and buy him time, was immediately followed by a confirmed murder, proving the killer is still active, unpredictable, and reacting violently to anyone who gets close to the truth. The stakes have never been higher.
Wolpert's death is the true pivot point. The killer has now struck 4 times, including the one person Bernie had spent hours investigating and observing. The question shifts entirely from who the killer is to why the killer is acting so desperately and so quickly. It's no longer a puzzle box, it's a kill zone.
And Wolpert, the keen observer, was clearly murdered because he was making subtle inquiries. He was found strangled, with visible marks on his neck. Bernie connects the dots, realizing Wolpert was killed because he knew something critical about the first victim, Rathburn, or perhaps about the intended victim.
And it is Millicent Savage, the precocious child, who is critical here. She was hiding under the bed in Rathburn's room during the search for clues, and she confirms Wolpert's strangulation and cause of death. Her pure, unfiltered observation makes her a perfect, terrifyingly accurate witness.
While in hiding, Bernie reveals the key piece of information he obtained during his own self-directed, invasive investigation. While the guests were busy looking for his dummy, Bernie searched Rathburn's room, found nothing related to the murders, but then
He broke into the Dacre Littlefield suitcase.
and found millions of dollars in untraceable financial instruments.
$8 million, specifically in bearer bonds. This is a brilliant piece of hard-boiled plotting. Bearer bonds are the perfect hard-boiled MacGuffin because they are cash equivalents, totally anonymous, and their movement can't be traced through banks. They scream illicit wealth.
They reveal immediately that Dacre Littlefield is not just an obnoxious new husband, but a large-scale thief.
This instantly exposes the true, cold-blooded nature of his honeymoon. Dacre is a thief who married Lettice, who worked in Wall Street, solely to gain access to her employer's office and steal those $8 million from Mr. Sternhagen's safe.
The whole marriage was a setup.
The true plot is revealed as pure, ruthless cynicism, a motive ripped straight from the pages of Hammett. The original plan was to honeymoon in Aruba, where Dakin planned to murder Lettice, traveling under a different name with a different passport, leaving authorities searching for a missing person while he escaped with the wealth. A clean, untraceable break.
But Lettice convinced Dakin to come to the faux English country house instead, believing it would be more romantic. This seemingly innocent change of venue created a fatal linguistic coincidence that put the entire party in danger.
Which means Rathburn and Wolpert were never Dakin's accomplices.
Never.
And this is the narrative engineering we need to focus on. The coincidence is the linchpin that breaks the cozy facade. The two dead men were, in fact, searching for a previous canceled guest named Petisham, who had booked the same room.
And the connection is linguistic. Petisham's name translates roughly to petit champ, or small field in French.
Small field.
Which immediately connects to Dakin Littlefield. The name literally means little field.
So Rathburn, the first victim, approached Dakin Littlefield, mistaking him for Petisham, likely demanding whatever package Petisham was meant to deliver, perhaps ransom money or a payment for some other deal. Dakin, paranoid due to having millions in stolen bearer bonds in his suitcase, panicked and killed Rathburn with the camel statuette and the pillow, attempting to stage it as an accidental fall.
Is it plausible, though, that a serious criminal like Dakin would leave $8 million in untraceable bonds in a suitcase and then panic over a random conversation? Wouldn't he have been cool and collected?
That's a great question, and Block addresses it through the characterization of Dakin. Dakin is a thief, yes, but he's not a master strategist. He's impulsive and arrogant. His panic reveals his deep lack of control. He was so focused on getting the money out of the country, he hadn't anticipated an early complication, especially one rooted in a silly language mix-up. The sheer volume of the crimes, 4 murders in rapid succession, proves his lack of professional composure. He's a vicious amateur.
And Wolpert, the keen observer, noticed Dakin's secretive behavior and, crucially, the linguistic connection. Wolpert had previously emphasized the phrase, small field, to Bernie.
Ah, so the clue was there.
The clue was there. Wolpert later approached Dakin, perhaps attempting to blackmail him or just seeking answers, and was immediately strangled with a necktie, a weapon Dakin grabbed at random.
It's interesting that Dakin even confessed to Bernie later that he hadn't written down his drink entries in the bar ledger, utilizing the honor system while he was getting drunk.
Of course.
The honor system, just like the English facade, was completely useless against a truly vicious criminal motivated by pure greed. Every sign of civility the house offered was an opportunity for exploitation.
This realization transitions us to the hard-boiled climax. Bernie, alive and armed with the truth, confronts Dakin, who immediately pulls a gun.
Which turns out to be Wolpert's own weapon that Dakin took off the body.
Revealing Wolpert was also armed, adding another layer of Mean Streets realism. Dakin confesses to killing Rathburn and Wolpert and attempts to take Millicent as a hostage to ensure his escape.
It is a moment of pure American thriller action. Bernie, the reluctant hero, stalls Dakin, pointing out the sound of an approaching helicopter. This is the ultimate subversion of the cozy genre. The solution isn't found in a quiet room with a diagram. It's imposed from the outside by technology and force.
And Carolyn, who was the only one on Bernie's fake death plan, had used the time he bought her to mobilize the authorities.
She's the real hero here, in a way.
She managed to get in touch with the state troopers, who were forced to use a helicopter bringing Detective Ray Kirschman along for the ride because the roads were impassable and the phone lines cut.
Carolyn's practicality and swift action saved the day. It's her hard-boiled response to the cozy trap. She bypassed the broken communication systems in the snow, bringing the external world of law enforcement directly into the sealed-off fantasy.
The authorities arrive in the nick of time, arresting Dakin. Lettice, horrified, realizes she was supposed to be the next victim in Aruba. The complex, interwoven plot unravels in front of everyone, proving that while the setup was meticulously cozy, the solution required cynical action and external force.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the blending of genres was entirely successful. The puzzle elements, the isolated house, the limited suspects, the coincidence of the name Littlefield Petisham were meticulously set up.
All the pieces were there.
But the killer was unmasked not through polite deduction, but through a calculated act of deception by a burglar, and the inevitable, forceful intrusion of modern law enforcement, true to the hard-boiled tradition.
And what of the treasure? The inscribed copy of The Big Sleep. Bernie found it, took it for safekeeping, thrilled that he possessed the ultimate association copy in American literature, potentially worth a massive fortune.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because Bernie's professional life is turned upside down. Bernie reveals he can't sell the book now. His dual identity was fully exposed during the investigation.
Millicent outed him.
Millicent told everyone he was a burglar, and the police later confirmed it. But his actions also convinced everyone he was an honest investigator and, crucially, an honest bookseller who cared about the integrity of the collection.
So Nigel Eglantine, impressed by Bernie's dual roles, the thief who found the truth, hired him to broker the entire Cuttleford House library, a massive undertaking of legitimate book sales. By choosing a legitimate, though massive, business deal over a one-off illegal fence, Bernie cemented his new legitimate business relationship.
It's the perfect ending for Bernie. He secures his position as an honest burglar, an oxymoron that perfectly captures his moral flexibility. He turned a disastrous weekend of murder into a massive, legitimate windfall for his business.
And as an unplanned bonus, he also confesses to stealing 2 bottles of Glendrum de Dronchet single malt scotch.
Of course he did.
A petty act of theft that seems entirely appropriate given the chaotic circumstances and his character. A little souvenir from the mean streets, masquerading as a library.
So Bernie walks away with a new job, his best friend, his cat, and a couple of great bottles of scotch, leaving behind a trail of bodies and a newly restored and highly flexible ethical compass. But there is one final, unsettling loose thread, one detail that refuses to fit into the neatly solved puzzle of the Littlefield conspiracy.
We solved 4 murders: Rathburn, Orris, Wolpert, and the motive for Dakin's entire scheme. But the cook remains an enigma.
Bernie admits he never determined who killed the cook, nor why. He has theories, perhaps someone unrelated who panicked when she saw the earlier body, or maybe someone stealing supplies. But the primary motive is never conclusively linked back to Dickon Littlefield's bearer bond scheme.
We, the listeners, are left hanging on that one specific fact. Rathburn, Orris, Wolpert, all explained by greed and coincidence. But the cook remains an untied knot.
And this absence of a final answer is perhaps the most profound genre statement of all. Bernie suggests this unresolved mystery is so Raymond Chandler, referencing the famous anecdote that even Chandler, the author of the very book Bernie was trying to steal, couldn't definitively tell screenwriters who killed the chauffeur in The Big Sleep.
That lack of tidy resolution highlights the core difference between the genres that Block successfully mashed together. In the cozy world, every piece fits, the puzzle is solvable, and order is restored.
But in the hard-boiled world, life and murder sometimes remain messy and unknowable. The final, unresolved detail of the cook reminds you that no matter how hard you scrub the veneer of civilized English tradition, the shadows and unpredictable violence of the mean streets still run right under the foundation of that country house. And that's a thought worth mulling over.